Welcome to an hour of power. I am Keith Anthony Blanchard, spiritual teacher, musician, author of the best-selling book Homecoming: Crossing the Bridge to the Soul, and your host of Center of Light. Let's dive in. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Center of Light. Keith Anthony Blanchard is Center of Light, Center of Divine Unfoldment and Reinforcement, strapping all my brother and sister astronauts as we launch for inner space. Homecoming: Crossing the Bridge to the Soul went bestseller August 1st. Hit number 6 in UK, which I'm really happy about. Thank you, Gavin Lee Davies. Next week, October 31st, Halloween, full moon. Full moon. I'm going to be in Melbourne, Florida, doing a Spirit Fest. I'm going to be a keynote speaker there on Saturday. I think it's at noon. Excuse me. At noon, Halloween day. And I'm going to be there with a booth, meet and greet. I'm going to be doing readings, counseling, those kinds of things. Hanging out with you beautiful, sexy human creatures from all over the world. Again, I'm going to be doing a presentation there, keynote speaker. The presentation is Crossing the Bridge to the Soul. Be careful if you show up. If I can touch you, I'm going to grab you and I'm going to pull you in the mix. At least my zone. And if you have a nugget for me, by all means, grab my hand and pull me into the deliciousness that you know as you. Tonight, my guests are Damian Gray and Ralph Torlucci. I'm going to be speaking about Paranormal World. Again, here's the link to my bestseller. If you have not purchased it already, consider it. It's a life-changing experience. It's diving deep into your soul for 30 years of my life's beautiful, passionate, diligent, blood, sweat, and years work, play. If you have purchased a book by now, I'm sure you dove in it pretty well, or you've probably even completed. And if that's the case, please use that same link, that hyperlink I just posted, and jump seat to Amazon. And right now would be a fantastic to leave me a review. That would be awesome. Let's get down to some Center of Light Radio beeswax. Let me grab a couple of links real quick from my guest. Let's see. I'm getting better and better and better at this software stuff. All right, let me tell you about my guest tonight. Hello, Heather. Hello, everyone in Center of Light Radio land, YouTube, as well as Facebook, as well as Periscope, which is somewhat, I think it's has a shake hands deal with Twitter. Hello, all you sexy people. Let me tell you about my guest this evening. Ralph Torlucci and Damian Gray are virtual magnets, I love that, for the paranormal. Having had many ghost encounters as well as UFO and alien experiences, they have created a YouTube channel and a podcast that deal with these subjects called Black Lotus Productions. They are paranormal researchers and have fallen down many rabbit holes, I get it, in the quest to discover hidden truths. Here's how you can find my guest tonight. Make sure you go to their pages and stomp all over it, make a big stink. Let them know that you exist. I'm sure they'd like to have a shake hands deal with you. Hello, Brian Roach. Hello, Robert. Everyone, good to see you, all you newcomers. Newcomers? You're not as new as you think, cowboy. You've been doing this a long time. Damian and Ralph, welcome to Center of Light Radio. How are you gents doing today?
Good. How are you doing, Keith?
I'm fantastic. Great. I'm fantastic. So if y'all see me do, everyone, if you see me do one of these, I have a little kitten. I have to keep her occupied. She's full of fire. Hello, gentlemen. Everyone, I did an interview a couple of 3 times with these two fine folks. And hello, Marina. And they said, Keith, can we sit on this side of the mic and you sit on that side of the mic? I said, sure. So welcome to Center of Light, guys. How you doing today?
Good. I got to apologize for our green screen in the background. We're sitting in our studio, and this is where the magic happens. And unfortunately, Skype won't let us change the green screen. So, sorry to your viewers about that.
Well, I tell you, it's one hell of a pretty green screen. How did you guys meet?
Oh man. Well, I think I was 17 and he was 19, and we met actually through the Rocky Horror Picture Show. He was in the cast that, the shadow cast that performs underneath the screen, and he played Frankenfurter. And it was one of my first times seeing the movie, and he came up to me later on in the movie and he says, "Hey, do you want to be my riffraff?" And I said, well, I don't know the movie. He says, that's all right. You can learn it. Don't worry about it. And, we've been friends pretty much ever since. And, I mean, we're both in our 50s now. And, but yeah, so.
You guys are getting old.
Yeah, we are.
I got a birthday coming up soon, bro. I'm going to be 50-something.
Are you?
50-something.
I'm
Yeah,
58.
right.
Ralph just had his 58th birthday. Yeah.
Happy birthday, bro.
Same to you.
So when you guys shook hands and met and kind of got your friendship going, what brought you into the paranormal in a greater capacity?
Well,
I don't think we were. I think it brought us into
yeah,
that.
I think that's pretty much accurate. Yeah. I mean, weird things have just always happened to the both of us, whether individually or together. And one of the first things that happened to us together was a couple of years prior to me meeting Ralph. I had a girlfriend, and she was over at my house, my mom's house. And we were walking down the hallway, and I was going to turn to go outside through the side hallway door. And she kept walking into the living room. And she jumped back and screamed, "Oh my God." And it kind of freaked me out a little bit. And I was like, "Oh, well, what?" And she says, "I want to get out of the house and I'll tell you." And I said, "Okay, well, let's go." And so we left, and she said, "I saw a guy sitting in that chair in your living room, slumped over to the side." And she said he was in like a tuxedo and he had blood dripping from his temple. And I went, "What?" And so I went back inside and I looked, and there was nothing there. And, this is back in the 80s, and my mom had one of those golden velvet chairs, kind of looked like a throne. And anyway, she said he was sitting in that. And anyway, so fast forward to a couple of years later, Ralph is at the same house with me, and we're doing the same thing. And we were walking down that hallway, and I was taking the trash out. And so I went down that side hallway. He kept walking on, and he did the same thing. He jumped back and said exactly, "Oh my God." And immediately I had that flashback to when my girlfriend did the same thing. And I said, "What's happening?" He says, there's a guy in your living room." I said, "Oh, no. We need to get out of here." So we jumped in his car and we went to a local grocery store or something like that. And we parked in the parking lot. And I said, "All right, I feel okay here talking about this. Tell me exactly what you saw." And he described the same guy in the same tuxedo with dark hair slicked back. But instead of slumped over with blood dripping out of his temple, he was sitting upright with his hands on his lap and just smiling at Ralph. And so I think that that's the first paranormal thing that you and I experienced together. But you had paranormal experiences with ghosts prior to ever meeting me.
Right. I've had, since I was a little kid, I've always, I guess, been what do you call it, skeptical to it. Probably when I was 10 or so, probably is the first time I saw something, but wasn't sure what it was.
You want to explain that?
Oh, it wasn't nothing. I just saw it was a lady in white. No, I take it back. That was probably more like when I was 14. Instead of 10, but I just kept seeing a lady in white going down the hallway. It was not much. It was just a little thing, and it didn't really freak me out for some reason.
Well, your parents had a very haunted house, as I recall. There were a lot of things that happened there that.
Yeah. Probably the biggest thing that happened was one time I was taking a shower. Right before I got in the shower, I almost knocked over a can of mousse. That'll tell you how long ago this was. I had hair back then.
Dig it.
But I pushed it back against the mirror because I had almost knocked it over, and I didn't want to knock it over. So then I go into the shower, and I'm sitting there taking the shower, and this can of mousse comes flying across the room and hits the door right next to the shower where I'm at. Now, I'm in a locked bathroom, so how does this happen? I have no idea. but it definitely set me off.
Yeah.
So how did you guys begin to broaden your passion, your research? You guys went from, let's just use this for now, simple paranormal, and then you guys started diving deep into this one that you started this radio show. Everyone that knows the links to my guests tonight, Ralph and Damon, you could find in this forum. The company or their work is called Black Lotus Productions. So when did you guys actually start really getting involved? Do you guys go out in the field to do this research as well? No, not yet.
We're not field investigators. We're but simple country folk. I like to refer to us as researchers and paranormal researchers. But we both have an interest in this kind of stuff. And so I told Ralph a while back, I'd kind of like to do a podcast. And I said, what I'd like to do is I'd like to focus on the paranormal and weird and unusual stuff. So he said, he liked the idea. And so we created a podcast called Pop Views, which actually ended up being a YouTube channel after a while. And we found that we weren't getting many listeners and we weren't getting very many viewers. And we think that the reason being is because we talked about all things. We talked about UFOs, we talked about Bigfoot, we talked about ghosts, and we also talked about movie reviews and politics and all that stuff. And I think the problem was that we would put this out like 2 or 3 times a week, and nobody ever knew what to expect. And so I think that that's why we weren't getting very many followers. And so we talked about it and we decided, okay, let's do a rebrand, because the shows that are getting the most attention are the ones that have to do with the paranormal. There's that cat again, huh? And so anyway, so we decided to rebrand, and we're going to call it Black Lotus, and it would be strictly a YouTube production. And in the process of rebranding, I made the biggest mistake. I accidentally deleted all of our previous videos, and we had a whole hell of a lot of them.
We had like something
like 70 of them or something like that. Yeah.
Ooh, that must have hurt. That must have stung.
Oh yeah, that killed me. Oh my God. Yeah. I mean, what a stupid blunder. But anyway, since we did do the rebrand, we had a brand new channel called Black Lotus Productions, and I think it was maybe not the smartest blunder in the world, but it was the best blunder I could have possibly made, because since we've been focusing on this, the weird and unusual, our subscribers have just taken off. But let me describe the difference between our podcast and our YouTube channel. Our YouTube channel is basically all things strange and unusual. We'll sit down and we'll talk about, well, what do you want to do this week? And we'll think up a topic and we'll focus on that topic, whether that topic is some sort of cryptid investigation or something about UFOs or something like that, ghosts. And then what we'll do is we'll find one specific thing about it and we will dive into research for it. And we usually take about a good week or so between episodes. And in that time, we're doing the research for this thing. So we go through a lot of research for our YouTube channel. Now, our podcast is Paranormal News Network, and that's a on Keith. And what that is, we bring the latest in paranormal news, and then we segue into interviews with fascinating people like yourself. And so, yeah, that's what we do there. And we just started that, I want to say 6 months ago.
Yeah,
something like that. And it's really doing well.
Robert Harrison asked from the chat room, I don't know if you guys had this experience. He asked the question, one thing that he tends to see when apparitions come to visit him is a light trail of white smoke. Have you guys had physical manifestations in your experiences. Robert, that would be a no for me. I have seen apparitions, the few that I have seen in the form of ghostly or paranormal, not speaking supernatural in the regards of spiritual, to use the word. I've seen two, I'd say three. I have not seen the white smoke. How about you guys?
No,
not personally, but not even with that lady in white.
no, because she was just an apparition. She wasn't like smoky or anything.
I've heard of that happening, but
Yeah.
we've never witnessed it. No.
So where does the UFO alien activity fit into this sandwich, this paranormal meat sandwich?
Well, I'll tell you another experience that Ralph and I had once back when we were kids. We were going out from Claremont, California, and that's in Southern California, to Oceanside, California, to visit his friend. And keep in mind that Oceanside from Claremont is a good hour and a half away. And so we went out there in the early evening, and we stayed there and we visited for a while, and then we left, and we got we got back on the freeway to go back to Claremont. And again, like I said, it was, Claremont's a good hour and a half away. And we were just sitting there listening to the radio. We weren't really talking. And then suddenly, bam, we're back in Claremont. And it was like not even 5 minutes had passed. It was very strange. And I remember looking at Ralph and going, what happened to the time? And even the clock, you had a little clock in your car, and it was off. And so we had that experience of missing time together, and we're not sure, neither one of us can remember of an alien abduction scenario. A lot of alien abductions have a case of missing time. We can't remember if that happened or not. However, in 1988, I had an alien abduction situation with just me. And I didn't remember it until 1995. And I had a friend of mine over at the house, and he believed in the alien presence on Earth and all of that, and UFOs. And really, I didn't. It's not as though I didn't believe in extraterrestrial life. I just didn't think that they would have much interest in us, to come all that way to, monitor us. Well, I was very naive. And so anyway, his name was Clay, and he had with him a companion book to the X-Files. So it had a lot of stills from the movie and that kind of or from the TV series. And one of the stills was of Fox Mulder, and he was pointing up at this triangular ship in the sky, and it wasn't very large. It was what some people would consider a T3RB. Is that what TR3B? Anyway. And so it wasn't very large.
Excuse me. What is a T3RB?
They think, well, that with the capital T, think that it is a man-made, backward engineered craft that is being used by the military, and but anyway, so when I saw this picture, I immediately blacked out, and I remembered the whole situation that happened to me back in 1988. And I was out for what they tell me about 5 minutes. And when I came to, they were very worried about me, because apparently it wasn't as though I blacked out and closed my eyes and fell faint. Apparently my eyes were open. I was just not responsive. And when I came to, I told them the first thing was out of my mouth. I said, that's it, pointing to the picture. I said, but it's not it. It's a hell of a lot bigger than that. It's about the size of a football field. And of course, my girlfriend and Clay were like, the hell are you talking about? So, yeah. But yeah, I remembered most of my experience at that time. But other parts of it have 6 months ago or so, Ralph and my wife and I were sitting in the living room, and we were watching this movie called The Fourth Kind. And in it, it's about alien abduction. It's a fictional story about something that actually happened apparently in Alaska. And the star of the thing is trying to recount her abduction scenario, and there was during the scene there was a drill that was coming directly toward her eye, and I freaked out because there was one part of that memory that I've never been able to discern, and that was when I was on the slab, because the alien put her hand on my forehead and I blacked out. That's what I remembered. But as soon as I saw this in this movie, all of that memory came back to me, and I've been contending with it ever since. I know a lot of people have had really good experiences with aliens, you know, that they've been taken by some really cool aliens and really haven't had a problem with it. I am not one of those people. I had a very bad experience with it, and it's caused PTSD. And I mean, I'm waking up in the middle of the night on a regular basis screaming just because I'm having these recurring memories of this stuff happening.
So do you think this is happening now, or are you remembering? Well, actually, is there really a difference between the two? Because if it's a memory or not, it doesn't matter to you in that moment. It is happening.
In that moment, right? In that moment, it's very real and terrifying. And but I don't think that I have been, and I don't know for sure, but I don't think I've been taken since then. Because and the reason for that is this dream is more just a recurring memory. I mean, it's the same memory over and over and over and over, you know, so it's kind of on a loop.
Robert again from the chat room says, meaning the experience you described just a little bit ago, you were moved from one location to another in the 90s. It was happening all the time. When I moved to Memphis, Tennessee, some years later, I go home to visit my dad, and my father says, Keith, do you remember so-and-so Price, a lady about Becky Price or whatever her name was, and her friend, blah, blah, blah. I said, yeah, I sure do. He says, did you hear what happened? I said, no, I didn't. He said, they were coming back from New Orleans on Highway 90, in a big stretch of Highway 90, and this guy in this big truck, I got a big truck kind of guy, he pulls next to them, and he looks at both of them, and they look at each other and says, oh my God, Becky, did you see that guy's eyes? And they disappear, or they black out. And 45 minutes later, which would take about 45 minutes from where they were to where they came to a state of consciousness again, they were moved 45, 50 miles down the road. So they were replaced into another linear time. So when I've been watching you, Damian, some of your posts on Facebook, and that these, you know, I wish I can get some sleep. Have you found any recourse? Have you found any sources that are helping you to deal with, move into this in a greater conscious capacity to where you can somewhat navigate yourself? Now, I don't want to say out of these experiences, but if now, I'll take that. But through it to where you can finally put this to rest. Are you having any salvation in this regard at all?
I wish I could say yes, but no, not really. What does help, I think, is that I've come to realize that they're kind of these grays that took me. They're kind of cruel to be kind kind of things. I think I understand sort of why they're doing this to people, why they're taking people and conducting experiments or medical procedures or something on them. I think I understand why, and it's probably for our own good, and I can kind of accept that, but it's not, that doesn't help when I'm dead asleep and I wake up, you know, screaming, remembering these nightmares, you know. And God bless my wife that she puts up with this, you know, because I mean, and she's very good about this. When I'm having these nightmares or recurring memories, whatever the hell they are, she wakes up and she's like, baby, I'm here. You're here, you know, wake up. So, I mean, that helps, you know, and I'm glad I have her to do that, you know, because I don't know if I would be able to handle it very well if she wasn't there doing that, you know.
And you really feel this is not happening now. These are just memories that are flooding back. Yeah.
Right. I mean, again, I don't know if I've been taken since the 1988 event or not, but nothing that I can remember. No.
How much are you conscious of the experience when it happens? Of course, again, these are memories, as per your words, these are memories, but do you immediately try to shut it off, or do you try to stay conscious of it so you can. It's often for me in my experiences, for any one of us actually in life, when things begin to happen, the game wants to be played. Do you find yourself conscious enough to play the game through? Because once the game is played, you get $200, you pass go. Do you allow yourself to finish the game, or do you just want no part of it and shut it off? Or do you try to stay awake or try to stay conscious of the experience? And how much of it do you have? Can you, if it's not too personal, can you share with us what it's like for you from when you're laying down and all of a sudden you become cognizant or conscious of this experience? Could you walk us through what it's like?
I don't feel as though I'm asleep when it's happening. I feel like I'm there again. I mean, that it's my current reality, So it's not as though I feel as though I can wake myself up. And even though this has been going on for a while, I still don't seem to think that I'm in a dream. I think I'm back there again, But
do you remember what they look like?
oh yeah, quite clearly. The majority of them on board were the typical grays, with the bulbous heads and small bodies. They were all about 3.5 to 4 feet tall, no more than 4 feet tall. And then there was one that I think it would be considered what people call a tall white. And in the room that I was in, there was like a catwalk toward like the back of the room. So when I was laying there, I couldn't move at all. I wasn't strapped down, but I couldn't move. The only thing I could move is I could move my eyes, and so I would see through my peripheral vision all these grays that were there. And then toward my feet, I looked toward that catwalk, and there seemed to be there was a tall white there, and that thing seemed to be in control of the grays. Now I can't tell you how I knew that at the time. It just seemed to be that at the time that it was certainly the case.
Do you recall any dialogue? Telepathically?
Yeah, telepathically, I had dialogue with one of them anyway, but amongst each other, they would make noises. I mean, it was obviously they were communicating telepathically, but they would make these weird noises, and the only thing I can liken it to is like the chirping of a dolphin, maybe that kind of like thing, But yeah, so.
Wow.
But yeah, I did have telepathic conversations with one of them anyway, and it was the one that placed her hand on my forehead, and I call her she protruded a feminine energy to me. But then when I was off the table, I was with her again, and she was trying to explain to me where they were from, and she showed me it was like a plexiglass board. But it had lights on it, and I didn't understand where they were from. She really didn't explain it very well. I later conveyed this to a friend of mine who was an astronomer, and I drew what I remembered, and he said, that's the Zeta Reticulus system, and I'm like, what's that? So, but yeah, so. And she also asked me about religion. She asked me about world religions, and that's something I do. I did understand that because I've always been into religions, whether it was Christianity or I've studied Buddhism, I've studied Wicca, I've studied paganism. So I've always been interested in religions. Now currently I wouldn't consider myself a religious person, but I was at one time. And so I told her what I thought about it, and I told her that I think that the majority of the world's problems can probably lead back to religion. Now I don't mean that. I get it. You don't have to explain. I get it. Well, I don't mean spirituality. I just mean religions, those dogmatic religions. I think that's a big part.
And yeah, thank you. It's really not the religion either. It's the people who are muddling and monkeying such beautiful celebrations and the way
Right.
to honor Creator up. I mean, Christianity is beautiful. Stop jacking with it. Muslim is beautiful. Stop jacking with it. Buddha and all that. People just, it seems like one of your posts I seen today in, I think it was either Ralph, I'm not sure if it was yours, but I saw it in the Black Lotus discussion group. Leave it to humans. They'll jack it up. They will always twist things into a not so pleasant way. What about you, Ralph? Have you had any extraterrestrial visitations?
No, I haven't had any extraterrestrial. I've seen some UFOs, but never have I been abducted or anything, or met a gray or anything like that.
Damian, when you're having these memories, I really, I'm not arguing with you. I have no doubt these are memories, but something inside of me tells me these are two. This is a fold in time and space. Even though it may have happened earlier in your life, the fact that it's very real for you in the moment that it's transpiring tells me there's a fold in time and space. So it's very, very real. And these beings who are on any level, who are beyond the span of time, you can still talk to them, even though it happened when you was a child or however old you were when all these things took place. You can still talk to them because they are in that space, the hyperspace of it all. Has they ever told you what it is they want from you, what they're doing to you, and the why of it all, where this is all going? Were you afraid because what they did freaking hurt, or do you feel that a lot of this was the fear in overdrive that brought you, all of it? How does that feel to you in that space?
Well, yeah, they have never explained themselves to me, and I never really even thought to ask them. Every time I have one of these memories, the way I come out of it is because I'm screaming in my sleep and I'm yelling, no, 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 why are you doing this? And there's no response, and then I'll wake up. So
does this happen often? Is there a pattern to it? Do you find yourself shouting the same words over and over? Do you enter this dream state? Do you enter the ship? Is it all the same repeatedly, or is it different scenarios you find yourself?
Yeah, it's the entire abduction scenario that I'm dreaming about. And I think I should have mentioned before I remembered this horrific part of the abduction, I had always believed that these aliens were beneficial. Or at least benevolent. I thought that they were relatively harmless, and so I, never really gave it a second thought. And so it's that way in this dream where I go aboard this thing and I feel that I'm being treated well and everything's fine, and then I start to remember the other stuff that happened, and that's when I start to kind of freak out. But yeah, every single time I have this dream, this memory of the abduction, it's from the moment it started, even before the abduction occurred. I was on the road, and this ball of light came up next to me, and then it sped off into a joint with that huge triangle. And so yeah, so it starts with that, and yeah. So
have you ever thought of hypnotherapy?
I have a good friend
Does
of
it
mine.
scare the bejesus out of you?
I
can understand. I can understand. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a friend of mine who Lori McDonald, and she's been on our podcast, and she's a world-renowned hypnotherapist that specializes in dealing with abductees, and she does a great work. I can't afford her though. But even if I could do it, I'm not sure if I would want to, because I have a feeling there are other memories that I'm suppressing, and there's probably a damn good reason for it. And I don't think that I want to remember anything else about this thing. As much as this thing traumatized me, I'm just kind of done remembering it. I have the memories that I have, and I don't think I need any more.
I get it, bro. I've had some experiences growing up, being under the Catholic dogma umbrella. Wow. I mean,
I'm right there with you.
Some of
I
these.
was raised Catholic.
Oh, were you? You're recovering now.
I'm recovering Catholic, yeah.
And bro, I'd find myself in a space of consciousness with a demon. Strangely,
Oh, wow.
synchronistically, perfectly, that I no longer follow the dogmatic Catholic faith. They no longer show up. So was it true? Was it truth? A little bit of both, some gray area. Well, being a spiritualist and a teacher, I still have experiences with lower energies, but they're getting so far and few in between because all of our vibrations are changing. And so therefore there's a greater interval, a greater rift between the lower and the highers. But when they did show up, or they do show up, however they are able to get to me, or I find myself doing something stupid in some dreamscape and I find myself standing in front of what we would normally call a devil or a demon, I'm at the space of awareness now in my life to where when I get my wits about me, it's like, bro, I'm about to blast you with light. You better go somewhere else. And one thing that you can do, or if anyone out there, if you find yourself conscious in a space where you might find yourself with some sort of low vibrational entity, is, well, Keith, the last thing I want to do is hug this person, this being. That's the first thing you should do. Grab them and hug them around the neck, give them a big old kiss on the face. Say, how you doing? They start squirming and they will leave because the energy becomes now a power that sits in your lap and in your will. They can't stand that. They want to control you. Gentlemen, where do you go with this on your show? What kind of people, and I know you lovingly brought me onto your show, but when you're in the garden, you guys are playing in the arena you love to play, what kind of guests are you bringing onto your show in the paranormal world?
We just had Gavin Lee Davies on
Who?
last week. Gavin Lee L. Davies, and we've been playing hell trying to get him on. He's a busy guy, you know. I mean, and so he's finally putting out his new book, Harvest: The True Story of Alien Abduction, on I believe it's on the 30th of this month. And so we had him on our show. I know you just recently had him on as well. And so we have people on that are, they're not just authors and they're not just people who are investigators, but it's anybody who's an experiencer of anything paranormal. I think the word paranormal is a broad umbrella for who we have on. We have people on there that discuss ghosts. We have people on that discuss spirituality, reincarnation, UFOs, cryptids. We had a filmmaker on about maybe 4 months ago, and he has a movie that he's put out on Amazon, and for the life of me, I can't remember the name of the movie, but he believes in the now what is it called? The Bigfoot singularity, and what that basically means is that he believes that they are not actual creatures here living on Earth, but they're transcendental beings that go through portals here, and that's possibly why we've never been able to capture one, and because they can open these portals at the drop of a hat and just disappear. I'm not so sure I believe that or not, and one of the things that both Ralph and I kind of pride ourselves in is that we are a lot like Art Bell or George Norrie from Coast to Coast AM, insofar as that as outlandish as any of these stories may seem to us, we never come across that way toward our guests. We
always give them the respect.
Yes, I mean, and I think that that's important. Anybody who has a podcast like ours should follow suit, in my opinion, because you know what? People's experiences vary greatly, and whatever is true to them is true to them, and we have no right to make any kind of judgment on that. And so now, after the podcast is over, I may look at Ralph and go, "What do you think?" And he may say, you know, I don't know if I believe it or not. And I'm like, oh, maybe not. I don't know. You know, but we will never act that way toward our guests. And unfortunately, I've seen a lot of podcasters out there that do that kind of thing.
I was attacked twice.
Were you?
I was attacked twice by the host, not necessarily the host, But one of the hostess friends, this guy came in and he started blasting me. I'm a big boy. I put my big boy pants on. I can handle myself. I can handle myself with verbiage. I can handle myself by being quiet. But I was psychically attacked. Something leapt out of this person and onto me. And I went into this tailspin of consciousness. I felt like I was truly in a whirlpool. I mean, I was present, but before you know it, I was in this dream. This foggy dream, and it caught me by surprise, not meaning like I was immediately thrown into it. It was at such a slow pace. I never thought something was amiss until I was fully submersed in it. And then it sounded like I was standing in a dark tunnel, and everything that was happening in my ears from the, excuse me, the interview was at a very long distance away. Yeah. And I was attacked. So yeah, but some of these people on these radio shows, podcasts, they love the dark stuff. They want to know about being probed up the backside. They want to know if you were laying on a table strapped in and screaming. They want to know all this hardware stuff. It's very far and few between that some people want to know about the lighter nature, the software, the angelic beings. And I love the hardware stuff too. I like the alien phenomena. I do. A lot of my early life research was submersed in the extraterrestrial phenomena, if you will. So, by the way, I am going to be interviewing everyone. Gavin Lee Davies, the guy who got me the book deal for Homecoming: Crossing the Bridge to the Soul, Halloween Eve, October 30th. I think his book comes out.
I think it's the 30th.
It's the 30th. I get to interview him then. I'm blessed. Great. So, guys, what do you see in your future for what you're going to be doing? Do you guys have any room to expand? You're grading technology. You're getting in touch with people. You're rubbing elbows in all the right way so you guys can play in the arena a little further in a greater capacity?
Well, I'll tell you, what we want to do is we want to get some big names on our podcast. Like, for instance, I would love to have Linda Moulton Howe on. Some people like that. And I heard that Joe Rogan, who is a big believer in UFOs and that kind of thing, I've heard that he really supports small podcasts. And so I think maybe during this whole COVID shutdown, couldn't hurt to contact him, I guess. But I mean, as far as Black Lotus Productions, what else we plan on doing, once this shutdown lifts and we're able to get conventions back again, I would love for us to go, like you said, rub elbows with some people that are, even if they're not big in the industry, I mean, at least there'll be people that would be interesting to talk to, and possibly we could have them on the podcast. We actually talked about going out to that storming Area 51 thing at one point. And then after coming to my senses, I was like, Ralph, I don't think this is a good idea.
Yeah.
What we would eventually like to do is we would like to get some equipment and actually go on investigations and see how that works out. But again, I mean, it's going to be a matter of monetizing our podcast and our YouTube channel well enough that we can afford the equipment and afford these road trips to go out and do this kind of thing. Right. So, because we are not made of money.
Before lockdown, did you guys move about to some of the MUFON events?
No. And in fact, I don't think that I would personally, I wouldn't go to a MUFON event. And that's because after talking to Erica Lukes, who was the former president of the Utah chapter of MUFON, and talking to her about MUFON, I don't think I want anything to do with these people. They seem to be just.
It's dark.
It's like all things. It started off with good intentions, but it ended up being corrupt. And that's pretty sad in my opinion that it had to happen.
It is definitely a clique. You're right about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So where would you like to go with this, man? Well, tell me some more about do y'all have two different fields of the paranormal, or do you guys kind of dovetail a little bit on some of the things and so different than the others? How does that work?
I think we dovetail on a lot of it, but I know that I'm mostly interested in UFOs. And Ralph, I think he's very interested in cryptids.
Cryptids and ghosts.
Yeah.
Tell me about that, Ralph. Tell me about your passion, your affinity for the crypt.
It fascinates me that there's a possibility that there are things living out there that are not human. And so many people have seen these things that you can't just deny that there might not be something out there.
Yeah.
Do you lean into one particular crypt and favorite? Do you have one that you're like really, really interested in, the idea or the possibility that such a one exists?
No, not really. Not really. And any of them, really, because like there's the Bigfoot and then there's the Dogmen. They could be the same thing for all we know. You know, people are seeing different things, but who knows? So no.
Well, I do know that the chupacabra is real. How do I know that? Because I was going to South Louisiana late night. When I go to South Louisiana, not this time that I went last week or a few days ago, a few years ago, 4 whatever years ago. I'm driving to South Louisiana at 2:00 in the morning. A friend of mine's driving, so I get to be lazy, and I'm leaning against the window. And the road is passing by just like this for hours. It's a 6.5 hour, 7 hour ride. And so I'm kind of sleepy, but I'm very much awake, just lounging on the window and looking ahead of me. And there's a bridge, and one of those little short bridges. It's got to be every bit of 50 feet, kind of just a passover bridge. And I see this creature. I don't know what it is at this distance. I just say, Linda, creature, meaning dog, cat, wolf, coyote. I didn't expect them crypt. And bro, as we get closer to this thing, I'm looking, and I knew I can see it right now. This thing looked like a shaved dog. It had the body of what would look like a Dalmatian. What was really odd was the head was a triangle, like a hyena. And the body was like a Dalmatian. But the tail was not a dog's tail. The tail it went all the way down to the ground like a big cat. And right before it touched the ground, it curled up. And I remember this to this day. And so my friend saw it as well and said, what is that? And look, being from South Louisiana, I'm very knowledgeable about scurrying creatures, trust me. And so one day, we went to the DMV to get my tags renewed. I'm sitting there, and someone was behind me who recognized me. Said, "Hey, Keith." And I said, "Yeah." And she goes, "Oh, yeah, how you doing?" And check this. We start talking, meet and greet, dialogue. She goes, "Let me show you this video my son took in our backyard yesterday." And it was a chupacabra. I said, I looked at Lynn and said, "That's exactly what we saw." So I know that the chupacabras are real. So have you guys ever moved into that field at all to explore the possibilities of how? Yeah.
Yeah, we've talked a lot about, in fact, we had a segment on our YouTube channel. We don't touch upon that so much anymore, but it was called Cryptids Across America. And what we were doing is focusing on states individually and what cryptid sightings they had there, repeatedly, and I think the reason we stopped doing it is because there's only so much you can say about Bigfoot, and almost every state has a Bigfoot creature in it, or a lake monster of some sort. So yeah, we have done a lot of cryptid research. I wanted to touch on something that you were saying that you're from South Louisiana. I lived in New Orleans for a long time, and for being one of the most haunted cities in America, I have never experienced a haunting there. However, I got something to tell you, because Black Lotus Productions, we focus on everything strange and unusual. And that includes like werewolves and vampires and that kind of thing. And so I had a roommate when I lived there, and we lived in the quarter. We lived on St. Philip and Royal. And we were coming home from doing something, and we were walking down Burgundy, and we were talking about Anne Rice and the fact that she placed her novel Interview with a Vampire in New Orleans, and I was telling him how appropriate it is. I mean, it's a vampire city. It really is. And so he turns to me, and his name was Chuck, and he turns to me and he says, "Yeah, well, I don't believe in vampires." And I'm like, "Well, I don't know. I think that it's entirely possible. Whether it's feasible or not, I don't know." But anyway, we lost track of the conversation, and we turned down Orleans Street. because we both worked at this bar there on Bourbon and Orleans called the Tropical Isle, and we were going to go in for a visit. And so as we're going down Orleans, we turn the corner, and the place was packed. The Bourbon Street was packed that night, and out of nowhere, this woman who was dressed all in like a white dress, and she had long white hair, and she looked relatively young. She looked like she could have been a teenager. And I say this literally, she quickly floats up to my buddy Chuck, and she looks at him directly and she says, "You better believe." And then she floats right past us again, and we looked at each other and looked back, and she's nowhere to be seen. So, I mean, God is my witness. This happened. And I mean, neither one of us could explain it. It was very strange. But yeah, that's probably the only paranormal thing I had, paranormal experience that I had when I lived there, which is weird. I mean, like I said, it's one of the most haunted cities in America, you know? But yeah.
Yeah, you were talking earlier about how Bigfoot supposedly has different names in different countries, different regions of the world. You got the Yeti, Bigfoot here in America, the Northwest, mostly Sasquatch. In Florida, they call it the skunk ape, or a smaller version or whatever of the skunk ape. And then somewhere in New England, they have one called, help me?
New England, the mud ape?
Mud ape? I think that's it.
Yeah.
Maybe.
So when I was on your show, we touched briefly on that. I think that if they are here, and some of my intuition and some of my people that I've been connected with, they say that they're if they're here, they're scientists. They are actually archaeologists. They take samples of plants and certain things, and so they take it back to their world to learn from. But my friend Robert says he's learned that the MUFON society they're extra creative with their stories of telling what happened.
Yeah.
It got blown out of proportion for me.
You know, and the fact that MUFON keeps everything as a heavily guarded secret. You know, I mean, that was one of the things Erica Lukes was talking about. That is one of the reasons that she left the group, and she said it's just ridiculous how they keep everything to themselves. Their whole point is to investigate.
Right.
And so what's the point in investigating if you're not going to release it to the public? So, yeah, you know, and I do know that they're working heavily with the government. And yeah, I don't trust them. I don't trust MUFON. I really don't. And I'm more than willing to go publicly about that, you know.
Gentlemen, thank you for joining me on Center of Light Radio. Everyone, I've been posting the links throughout this interview into the forum. Is there anything you would like to leave our listening audience with? Shout out to your pages or closing thoughts, whatever that may be. Both of you, either way.
Yeah. I know we're live streaming on YouTube, and you are not on YouTube. Oh, YouTube. I guess YouTube as well, but on Facebook. And we have a group called the Black Lotus Discussion Group, and there we talk about, you know, everything that we talk about at Black Lotus Productions on YouTube, all things strange and unusual. And the nice thing about this group is that we don't have any trolls. I mean, I know that there's a lot of groups out there that have a lot of people there that are just set themselves up to cause trouble, and we don't have any of that.
And we have more people that are willing to help you.
Yeah. So in other words, like if you've been abducted yourself and you're seeking some help, there are people there, including myself, that are more than willing to lend an ear, you know, or if you've had a cryptid or a ghost experience and, you know, you're freaked out about it, come to the group and talk about it with us, because you will not be judged at all. That's one of the big things about this group, is that we refuse to have anybody judge anyone for anything. And so there's that. And again, Paranormal News Network, our podcast, is available on Podbean. It's available on Spotify, iHeartRadio, and now it's available on Amazon Music. And we do that every Wednesday. This Wednesday we're going black because the guest kind of skated on us. So, but we'll be back next Wednesday with it. YouTube, we have over 100 videos there. Definitely go take a look at it. And again, it's called the channel's called Black Lotus Productions. And I think, you know, if you're into this stuff, you will really dig that YouTube channel. We're having an issue with YouTube right now. I'm not real happy about this, but decided to remove our second most highest rated video there. And they said it was a matter of breaking policy about bullying and harassment. I rewatched this video, and there's nothing of the sort in it. And so I appealed it, and if I don't like what I get in response, I think we may end up going to another platform rather than YouTube. We'll leave the YouTube channel up. We'll just be posting on another channel from that point on, and I'll let our subscribers know where we're going to be at that point. But yeah.
Damian and Ralph, thank you both, gentlemen. I really had a good time
Thank
with you.
you.
You're welcome here anytime on Center of Light Radio. Everyone, I've been posting links to where you can find these two gentlemen's passion. Maybe it'll spark you to live your own passion. If you're curious about certain subjects of the crypt, the paranormal in any way, why not go over there and support them in their beautiful. Again, gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me in Center of Light Radio. You're always welcome.
Thank you.
Everyone, Keith Anthony Blanchard here. Good to see you on Center of Light Radio. Yo. Thursday night, I'm going to have Marina Govier as my guest. We're going to be talking about lots of different spiritual things. Lots of different ones. We're going to have a lot of fun. She's very, very enlightened. She's very, very powerful. She's a firecracker. You like firecrackers? She will crack you up. Peace, love, and light. I'll see you soon. Keith Anthony Blanchard. Live in the light. You're already in the light. Why not become conscious of that very fact? Enjoy.